Imagine waking up one day to find your citizenship revoked, vanished as if it were a dream. No warning, no appeal, just a cold official letter arriving in the mail, informing you that you're no longer considered an American citizen. The foundation of your life, pulled out from under you. Suddenly you can't vote, your voice silenced in the very nation you believed you belonged to. You can't legally work, the means to support yourself and your family abruptly cut off. You can't even prove who you are, your identity erased from the system, leaving you in a bureaucratic limbo. You're invisible in the eyes of the law without the protections and rights afforded to every citizen. This isn't a dystopian movie plot ripped from the pages of fiction. It's happening quietly, insidiously right now in the United States of America. We like to think citizenship is permanent, a birthright or a hard-earned achievement, but for some, it's proving to be more like a subscription, a fragile agreement that can be canceled at any time without warning. The government is ramping up denaturalization efforts, stripping people of their citizenship for decades-old, often minor and sometimes unintentional mistakes made during the naturalization process. Imagine the sheer panic and dread that sets in. You're suddenly cut off from everything you know and rely on. Banking, your financial life in ruins, healthcare, access to essential medical services, even your own family, the people you love most. You become a legal ghost, a non-person in the eyes of the system, living in constant fear of detention, facing the threat of immigration enforcement, or even deportation to a country you barely know, a place that may no longer feel like home. While we're all distracted by the constant barrage of news headlines and political debates, the very definition of what it means to be American is being quietly narrowed and redefined behind closed doors. This isn't just a story about immigration policy or legal technicalities, it's about who gets to belong to this nation, who is considered worthy of the rights and privileges of citizenship, and about how easily and with what little recourse that fundamental sense of belonging can be erased, leaving lives shattered in its wake. For those directly affected by denaturalization, the consequences are utterly devastating, a life sentence of uncertainty and fear. The very promise of American citizenship, once considered sacrosanct, is being quietly rewritten, its guarantees weakened. And the fundamental question of who truly belongs in America, who is considered American enough, is more unsettled and fraught with anxiety than ever before. Statelessness sounds abstract, but it's a nightmare. A stateless person isn't recognized as a citizen by any country. No passport, no rights, no protection. The UN estimates at least 10 million people live this way, but the real number is likely higher. Without citizenship, you can't access education, healthcare, jobs, or even get married. It's a life on the margins, where every door is slammed shut. Statelessness is often inherited, trapping entire families in limbo. Causes range from collapsing empires to discriminatory laws and bureaucratic errors. In America, the risk is real. We could create a permanent underclass with no rights or recourse. Creating legal ghosts isn't just a policy failure, it's a moral one. How is the US government, an institution meant to protect its citizens, making its own people stateless? It seems counterintuitive, doesn't it? Enter Operation Janus, a project initiated to re-examine old records of naturalized citizens. The stated goal was to identify and address inconsistencies, but instead of simply fixing clerical errors, which are bound to happen in any large-scale bureaucratic process, the government is actively using these minor discrepancies to strip citizenship from naturalized individuals, even for decades-old, seemingly harmless mistakes that have no bearing on a person's eligibility for citizenship. Denaturalization was once a rare occurrence, reserved almost exclusively for individuals found guilty of heinous crimes, like war criminals or those involved in terrorism. Now, it's increasingly becoming a tool for targeting virtually anyone, regardless of their contributions to society, with a minor paperwork slip-up from years ago, a forgotten detail on a form from years ago, something easily overlooked or unintentionally omitted, can suddenly unravel your entire life, threatening your family, your livelihood, and your very sense of belonging. The Supreme Court has, through its rulings, made it significantly easier to revoke citizenship, lowering the bar for what constitutes grounds for denaturalization. For even minor misstatements, even those that are immaterial to the original naturalization process, the message your citizenship is conditional, not a guaranteed right, always under review, subject to scrutiny and potential revocation at any time. This isn't about fixing errors and ensuring accuracy. It's about actively finding them, meticulously searching for any possible justification, and punishing people severely for them, regardless of the circumstances. The result? A climate of fear and uncertainty for millions of naturalized Americans who now live with the constant threat of denaturalization hanging over their heads. The promise of permanent belonging, the very essence of the American dream, is being replaced by a state of perpetual probation, where citizenship feels less like a right and more like a privilege that can be revoked at any moment. Who's at risk of facing the consequences of denaturalization or deportation? The scope of this issue is far broader than many realize. Not just a few people, we're talking about a significant portion of the population. Over 20 million naturalized citizens could be targeted, their lives potentially thrown into turmoil. Anyone who became American through the legal process, believing they had secured their future, is vulnerable to government scrutiny, subject to reviews and potential challenges to their citizenship. Even minor, decades-old paperwork errors, often unintentional, can be grounds for investigation. Green card holders, those striving towards full citizenship, and refugees, who often arrive with incomplete or fragmented records due to the circumstances they fled, face similar threats and uncertainties. Even children aren't safe. Their futures are intertwined with their parents' immigration status. If a parent's citizenship is revoked, the repercussions extend far beyond that individual. Their kid's status could be questioned, leaving them in a precarious legal limbo. This could lead to creating generations of stateless families caught in a bureaucratic nightmare. Dual nationals too are at risk, facing increased scrutiny. Having two passports can make you a target in a climate of suspicion, raising questions about allegiance. The list of who's vulnerable keeps growing. It's a constantly expanding circle of concern. It affects our neighbors, our colleagues, the people we interact with every day. It touches our friends, our family, the very fabric of our communities. This isn't just about others. It's not a distant problem affecting someone else. It's about all of us, about the kind of society we want to build and protect. The government's dragnet is wide, casting a shadow over countless lives, and it's only getting wider, encompassing more and more individuals and families. We're not just talking about legal technicalities. This goes beyond abstract legal concepts. We're talking about lives upended, families torn apart, and futures destroyed. The threat is real, with tangible and devastating consequences for those affected. And it's closer than you think, potentially impacting people within your own community. No one's status is as secure as it seems. The ground beneath our feet is shifting. Why is this happening? The official answer: national security. But the reality is more complicated. Protecting the country is important, but this goes far beyond rooting out real threats. Millions are spent investigating harmless people for ancient paperwork errors. This isn't targeted security. It's a sledgehammer, not a scalpel. The real motive? Politics. Making citizenship harder to get and easier to lose changes who can vote and who can't. It's bureaucratic voter suppression, reshaping the electorate by fear and exclusion. Fragile citizenship sends a message. Some are real Americans, others are just on probation. This isn't just policy, it's a battle for the soul of the country. Are we a beacon of hope, or a gated community with an ever tighter grip? The answer will define America's future. Think this can't happen here? History says otherwise. The Dominican Republic stripped citizenship from thousands, creating generations of stateless people overnight. Myanmar's Rohingya were rendered foreigners in their own land, paving the way for persecution and violence. When governments revoke citizenship en masse, it always leads to division, instability, and suffering. The U.S. is flirting with the same dangerous path, despite knowing where it leads. It starts small, then grows. First a few cases, then thousands, then whole communities. This isn't just about law, it's about conscience. Do we want to be a country that promises belonging only to snatch it away? If we let the government make ghosts of our neighbors, how long before it happens to us?